setup. Hello YouTubers, hello subscribers to this old Mustang, hello new viewers, hello lovers of street machines, anyone that happens to be watching, welcome. Today I am going to share with you the very best, in my opinion, cold air intake that you can put on an 05 through 09 GT Mustang. I tried to look up the production numbers. It's somewhere like a half a million GT Mustangs between 05 and 09. And you know, I'm very well aware, I've done it myself, when someone gets a car, you know, it's got a V8, it's got some horsepower and some torque, the first thing they want to do, even on the sportier little car, is the very first modification is a cold air intake. Let me put in a cold air intake. It's not always the best idea. This is the first car that I probably didn't put a cold air intake. I replaced the motor, I put headers on it, I put axle backs on it, I put a custom race tune in it, but I did not replace the air filter. And I'll tell you why. Okay, so guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, this is the stock air intake on your 05 through 09 GT Mustang. This connects to your throttle body. This is rubber, okay? Curves over here. Your air box is in here, but you'll notice, see this opening? That opens up into the fender. So any air going into here is getting sucked. It's cold air that's getting pulled out of the fender well. Now, a lot of research and development goes into these from the factory. Okay, they want to keep it as cool as possible, and they want it to run as good with your stock tune as possible. This plastic and this rubber, I'm not sure, but I'd be willing to bet, is fairly heat resistant. Okay. So you got cold air coming in here and looping around and going in there. It's not a bad stock setup, okay? And what happens is, most guys will go out and they'll get the JLT or the Air Raid, or there's literally dozens of cold air intakes to choose from. And what it consists of is a plastic or a chrome tube that runs from here, and then you have a heat shield here and an open air intake with some rubber around the edge here to block it off from the hood, okay? But that doesn't mean it's sucking cold air out of the fender well. And you still suffer what's called heat soak. In other words, it gets hot under there, really hot. And it's pulling air that's hot under your hood. So I would venture to guess, and I can't say for sure, I'm sure some are very good, and I'm sure some aren't very good, but most of your aftermarket air intakes are not cold air intakes. I'd go so far as to say some of them are probably hot air intakes, okay? We made a video, our very last video, which was the Surprise 3.7 versus the Coyote 2019, and his was exposed, and Brandy with the blue Impact Blue V6, if you notice, that air intake was sitting right on top of the headers. That's not a cold air intake, okay? That's not better than stock. You've got heat coming right off of these iron headers, or chrome headers, or whatever they were, and going right into the intake manifold. So I put a lot of thought into it, and I figured, you know what, I'm going to trust the Ford engineer designers and leave this thing on for a while. And I searched and I searched, and after I put the tune in and I got this thing running really good, I said, okay, now it's time for a cold air intake. But I just didn't like anything that I saw, and they're expensive. They can run you anywhere from $175 to a really good one, allegedly good one. It's $394, and then they want to sell you a Bama tune with it as well, because you can't put that air filter in without a tune, even though you're still technically, in many cases, just my feeling, you're pulling a lot of hot air from under the hood. Now, post that picture real quick from our EcoBoost race, and you'll see me touching the walls of his cold air intake and his chrome, very beautiful chrome tube that runs into the throttle body. You could have fried an egg on it. Okay, so here's your cold air box, and you got a heat guard here. Wow, feel the heat guard. That's hot.
That's coming from Washington Township, man.
It's not as hot. It's hot. Wow, woo!
Yeah,
that's hot too.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Right.
Trust me, I can tell when it's heated up.
And what does that tell me? That tells me that the hot air going through there, passing through that chrome tube, is blazing hot. So he's basically pumping steaming 100 and something degree heat into his throttle body. That's not the purpose of a cold air intake. So I searched and I looked, and I noticed online, because I did this for months, you know, I saw an intake and I was like flabbergasted. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I have seen them like that. My WS6 Trans Am, which had ram air hood scopes, had the air filter in a box right underneath the air intakes. Okay, if you look at most Corvettes, coming out of the throttle body, it runs down and on an angle, and then the cold air intake is down here, and there's vents in the grill, so it's actually a ram air hood. If you look at the Challenger, one of the headlights is not a headlight. It's open, and it's sucking cold air right into the throttle body. So I kept that as long as I could, and then I found this other air intake. And in my opinion, this has got to be the best cold air intake you could possibly put on an 05 through 09 Mustang. And I think when you see it, you'll agree. Okay? It's made by Western Motorsports, and we'll flash up the name Western Motorsports on the screen and the phone number and any other pertinent information necessary if you want to look into it. Most of you guys, that if you did buy a 05 through an 09, they either came with they either still had the stock filter on it, okay, or somebody put a cold air intake on it before you bought it. If they put a cold air intake on it before you bought it, well, great, take it off. You didn't pay anything for it. You got nothing to lose, okay? And then you might want to go with what I put on this. All right, so let me show you what it looks like real quick. And then we'll go through what the installation was like. You'll notice that these are completely functional. That's, as I've said many times, that's a wind tunnel under this. There's your cold air intake. Short ram, what do they call that? A short ram air. There's like no distance from here to the throttle body. This is your air box. It's not even hot. Okay? Of course it's not hot. It's got wind coming through here, and these, if you have a flat hood, the cold air is coming through these two openings here, funneling up into here, gets trapped in here, gets sucked into the cold air intake. So this is really about as good as you can get. Now, let me just go through, and I'll pop this again after we start. This was not the easiest ram air intake to install. The first thing that had to come out was your radiator shroud, okay? Because that, what you saw in there, replaces the radiator shroud. And it looks a lot neater too, okay? So I'm gonna put up a picture, a few stills right now of what it looked like stock, okay? So take a look at those for a minute or two. And then the next picture you'll see, we've removed the air shroud, okay? So that's gone. In the next picture, we assembled the new shroud, and very easily, just with the double stick adhesive tape and a few little clips, we put in the walls of it, which created the air box itself. All right, bolting it down was easy. It's got a spot for the. Well, it wasn't so easy. Let me rephrase that. First, we have to relocate the coolant, the overflow coolant tank. All right. You can flash a picture of it without the coolant air intake, okay? But I want to show everybody, might as well do it since we actually have the car right here. Your coolant air intake is right here, all right? Now they provide you with the proper tubing in the kit, all right? We did have to use one extra hose, okay, but that was not a problem. They provide you with the tubing in the kit. You take this off. Come on over here, Ant. See this steel bracket? They provide you with this steel bracket, and this is your overflow tank. It used to be over here. Now we've relocated it over here, all right? And we'll flash some pictures up of my buddy Brandon, who's a really good wrench turner. Come on over here, Ant. This, if it will come off, is your power steering fluid. Is it power steering fluid? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. What's it say on it? Yeah, it's power steering fluid. So it's got a spot right there that goes right over that. Get on there. Okay, there we go. There you go, and that's nice and tight. All right, so we took this, we had to move this over here. All right, then you'll see in the next picture, the very next thing we did was after we relocated that, we bolted this down. Okay, we took off the old unit completely. You can see that, and Ann will post a couple pictures of that. All right, and finally, we connected this giant rubber tubing here, which is the connector from the throttle body to the, well, it's not very long. It's the intake to the throttle body. Here's your mass airflow sensor right here. Okay, now take a look, and you can post a couple pictures of Brandon. He did a terrific job with this because it's not long enough. They give you extra wires, and we had to cut right here and splice every single wire, then replace this tube. He did a great job with the electrical tape, heated it up, melted it on there. It's beautiful. And that's our new, we had to lengthen that. Wasn't too hard. Just got to be careful when you do it. And then over here, I'm not exactly sure what sensor that is, but that plugged right in with no problem, okay? Now, if you look at the pictures again, you'll see we got this on, and then finally we installed our air filter. So, shoot a before and after picture on there. What else do we, the hoses, like I said, the hoses had to change. This had to be completely reconfigured right here. The overflow hose was going over here. We had to extend it and run it over here. But what we ended up with was a cold air intake right here, right in front of the throttle body. Heat shields here, air box here, and on this particular setup, which is why I really wanted it, these gigantic ram air. And before I took the screen out, put my fingers in there, and my fingers literally were right here, through there and into there, and they're touching the air filter, which tells me that the wind coming through this thing is going right onto this thing. So it's coming up through here, it's going through there. This thing's freezing cold, or well, much colder. Now, according to the manufacturer, that's designed for a flat hood, but it works even better with the Cervini setup here. They dynoed it on a stock tune, and allegedly it added 23 horsepower, which is pretty significant. I don't know what it's doing with the tune that we've got in it, except that it feels real good. And then what I found really impressive was they did separate times. From 50 to 100 miles an hour with this ram air filter on, it increased the speed of the car by 1.3 seconds. That's significant. That's significant. I always say a tenth of a second is about a car length. I don't know if it is going at that speed, but you figure even if it's 4 car lengths or 3 car lengths, that's a big deal. Going from 0 to 100, 1.3 seconds faster than you would have with your stock setup. So I would say, guys, if you bought it and it already had a cold air intake on it, get it off of there. They've only got a limited number of these left. They stopped producing them because now we're into Coyotes, and 3.6 4 valves aren't, or 3 valve 4.6s aren't as relevant as they used to be. So I'd say get that out of there and put this in. Okay, if you have trouble, go to your buddy or your local mechanic that's really good. He'll help you relocate everything. Running. That's the setup. If you're not boosted and you want a shot of cold air, this is probably your best bet. Like I said, put up Western Motorsports again with the phone number. If you do order this, mention this old Mustang, okay? Maybe you can get a discount. I think it speaks for itself. Let's take it out for a little test drive. What do you say, Ant?
Sounds good.
All right. This is a far cry from when we got it back on the road. Wouldn't you say, Ant? I mean, the first video we did, Resurrection, it was making a lot of noise and it was going, but it seems to really spool up now. I just got to get back tires. Ever since I put that darn tune in, I burned all the rubber off the back tires. We got a big day coming up on Sunday, and I don't think I'm going to be able to participate. Every time I hit second gear in this thing, I'm like going to turn into a Mustang fail. It just wants to kick out sideways. Third gear. That's all right. We shouldn't be doing that on South Woodbury Road anyway. I remember we came down here on Resurrection, and I was coming down this loop.
We broke down right here, right?
No, we didn't break down.
Right,
I got on it a little bit.
Oh, Resurrection.
Let's hear if it sounds any different. Yeah, I would say so.
I would see if I can find the old audio and compare them.
And we're getting some front end shimmying up around 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. And it doesn't exactly inspire confidence. So I'll have that fixed by next week. I have a feeling I know what's going on, but I have to run through the checklist. Let's get down in a second.